Today's episode may sound like we're talking about YouTube because I'm very confused by the idea of reaction videos. But a friend of mine brought up a great point, and it does tie it right back to podcasting and how you have to get comfortable with A, stating your opinion, and B, being okay if not everybody likes it. Let's start the show.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your award-winning Hall of Fame podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, I help you plan, I help you launch, I help you grow, I help you monetize your podcast. My website is schoolofpodcasting.com. Use the coupon code LISTENER when you sign up for either a monthly or yearly subscription, and that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And so I was listening to my buddy George Hrab. He does a show called the Geologic Podcast, and he was talking about how reaction videos are kind of weird and yet very, very popular. And as soon as he said that, kind of what we're talking about today came into play, and that was me going, yeah, me too. Like, I can just watch whatever you're reacting to and have my own reaction. I don't need to see what you react. I can actually have my own. It happens quite naturally when I watch things. So that was my reaction to George saying, what's the deal with reaction videos? So already I'm like, hey, me and George are on the same page. And what did he do? He voiced an opinion, just like he was talking to me across the table. And so he then said, well, wait, why do people watch reaction videos? And he said, because you know what's coming. I'll give you a great example. There's a very popular song by Phil Collins called In the Air Tonight. And there's a part, it's a very kind of solemn song. And then about halfway through, there's a drum fill. Do, 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 do. Right? Everybody's waiting for it. It would be a close match if that song or Tom Sawyer by Rush, which one inspires more air drumming? Because I'm here to tell you, as I was saying that, yes, I was air drumming that. And so we know where the cool parts are, and we're waiting to see, is this person going to react like I would react when that great part comes? And when they do, and in my opinion, often really, really, really overreact because they know there's a camera on them, you go, yep, that guy got it. She did the same thing I would do when the first time I heard it. I am now in community with a person who just air drummed for the first time to Phil Collins. Well, maybe they didn't. The first time you don't, because you don't know what's coming. But you get the point. You're like, oh, did you see them? Yep, they didn't know it was coming. I knew it was coming. And then it happened, and they did the thing. And yep, see, I saw it. I called it. And I was, that's probably it. Because it is a very, very popular form of videos on YouTube. But there's also another element there. So not only you know that I know that that thing's coming up, but what is that? When we boil that down, what is it? I want to see what happens next, which I've talked about many times on this show. That is an element when you can tell a story and the listener is kind of like, I wonder what's going to happen next. That's kind of gold. That keeps them tuned in. How do you increase your average duration, watch or listen? You get your audience going, I wonder what's going to happen next. Now, I want to tie this into another thing that we've talked about in the past. I was talking about how people that do political shows need to know going in that 50% of your audience is probably going to hate you. And when we talk about things like race and gender and sex and you know the subjects that you kind of go, oh, should we talk about that now? I don't want to, we get a little nervous about it. That if you stick to answers that are, for lack of a better phrase, very vanilla, right? They're not really, and they're not really that. They're just safe. And I hear a lot of shows that talk about brand safety. And to me, when I hear the phrase brand safe, I think boring. Really, really boring. In my last episode, we talked about what makes wow content. And I mentioned a lot that I don't hate ChatGPT. I don't hate AI. And I will be doing a show in the future. I'm doing some research on some ways you actually can use AI to get very decent answers. My buddy Joe Salsihigh from Stacking Benjamins gave me a phone call, gave me some tips. My buddy Craig over at AI Goes to College pointed out some things. So we're going to bring that topic back. Because again, I don't hate AI, but the way I use it, I'm not really floored by that. And when I hear brand safe, I think very 10,000 foot overview answers that aren't very deep. Where I think podcasting really, really kind of thrives is by going an inch wide and a mile deep so that people get information that you can't get anyplace else. But to have that kind of reaction, you have to voice an opinion. And I think that is one of the things that might stop many wannabe podcasters from actually pressing record is, well, somebody's going to judge my content. And I always say this, if you're not aware of this, if you've ever been to the grocery store in, let's say, the last month, guess what? You were judged by the person behind you in line. You were judged as you walk down the dairy aisle going, where the heck is the milk? You get judged all the time. You get judged in the car when you're driving. You're either too fast, too slow, too close, whatever. You didn't turn your blinker on. You are judged all the time. And a podcast is no different. And sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes that means the person isn't going to listen anymore. And that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I was listening to a show. I love it. It's got two of my favorite people. And that is Mark Asquith and Danny Brown from Captivate.fm. In fact, Danny was a fill-in co-host this week on Ask the Podcast Coach. So I'll put links to both those out there. You can find In and Around Podcasting at inandaroundpodcasting.com. And they have a segment that's called
Stupid Stuff in Podcasting.
And that's one of the things I like about the show. They have jingles for everything. Their intro's awesome. Again, in and around podcasting. But wait, hold on. Stupid stuff. You're calling something stupid? Are you allowed to say things are stupid anymore? Even when they're, stupid? Yeah, it turns out you are. And so as I was listening to this, now this is a long clip. And I asked Mark, I go, Mark, any chance I can play that clip on my show? And Mark and Danny were very gracious to go, yeah, here it is. Here's the jingle. They gave me everything. It was really cool. But as I listened to this, it seemed like every single tip I was like, amen, amen. Ariel Nissenblatt said this one about YouTube, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, preach on, girl. I was really getting excited as I heard this. So what got Dave so pumped up? Well, Mark was at the podcast show in London, walking around with a microphone, and he got a ton of people to share what they feel stupid things in podcasting are, and this was the answers.
I'm James Bishop, founder and CMO at One Fine Player podcast production company. For me, the most stupid thing in podcasting is people not putting their own ads inside their podcasts from day one. I really cannot get my head around how people don't understand you can use a tool like Amy, which is a Captivate product that allows you to stick dynamic tags inside your podcast episode and run ads, even if they're for yourself. You should be your first advertiser. Put promos for your own products. Find affiliate links for things that you love that you're not getting paid for and run ads. See how they perform. Then you've got data points when you want to go and speak to potential actual sponsors. Everyone should be doing that from day one. There's no excuses and no reasons why not. That is the most stupid thing I see in podcasting in 2024.
Did you notice the passion in his voice? Let's keep going.
Hey, I'm Tim from Quench.ai. We're an AI company. We work with podcasters and other content media companies. So stupid stuff this week. You've probably heard about OpenAI and them using a voice that sounded very similar to Scarlett Johansson because they couldn't get her permission. And what's up with that? I mean, are podcasters going to suddenly start using voices of celebrities with AI, or using very similar voices to try and pretend to be other people?
Hi everyone, I'm Fatima Zaidi. I'm the founder and CEO of Quill. I'm here at the podcast show and just chatting through some of my biggest pet peeves in the podcasting industry, and the biggest one being when folks are looking for instant gratification. When something is too good to be true, it usually isn't. And so anyone promising you 20,000 downloads overnight, there's no such thing as instant gratification in podcasting. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
I'm Giles Collins. I'm a podcast producer based in the Northwest. And my stupid thing in podcasting is that you need a bazillion downloads and a celebrity to host your podcast to make it big. You really don't. And all you need to know is who your audience is and who you want to listen, and then what you want them to do. And if that means that 5 people listen and 4 of them buy from you, then you've won. Done. Easy. No need to have loads of downloads. No need to have a celebrity. No need to spend big. Beautiful.
I'm Ben Dodd from Captivate, and my stupid thing in podcasting is the rush towards 1 million downloads. You need to engage with your actual audience rather than chasing download numbers, which feels more like a vanity metric. You need to engage with those who actually care about you and work towards selling them something that they really, really love.
Hi, I'm Steph Fucci. I'm from Coffee Lake Media. I help folks get unstuck in their podcasting and help them grow their audience by using podcasts, newsletters, and YouTube, mostly static image. And that's what I want to talk about today. I love video and I love audio, but with video, people are getting out of control with their equipment, and the attention is going away from content and what's valuable for listeners, and it's going into showy video stuff, nice backgrounds, excessive equipment, all that kind of stuff. Content. What is valuable for your listeners and to build the community that you're building? That is where podcasting is, at least for me and for a lot of people that I talk to. So please stop overproducing your videos and spend more time on your content.
I swear I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Content.
I'm James Cridland. I'm the editor of Pod News. This is a very loud place. My stupid stuff in podcasting is people that just witter on about video. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to get all of your cameras ready, you have to have multiple views. No, stop all of that. That's stupid. Focus on a great audio show first, and then maybe in 2 years, 3 years, think about doing video once you're more successful. But video first, stupid.
Hi, my name's Ariel Nissenblatt. I'm the community manager at Descript, and I'm the founder of Earbuds Podcast Collective. And my stupid thing in podcasting is bullshit marketing advice. And the reason I say that is because, actually, I'll give you a specific example. A lot of people love to say, you know, if you want to grow your podcast, you should start a blog, you should start a newsletter, you should go viral on TikTok, you should start a YouTube channel. Those are things that all in and of themselves require their own marketing. Those are not marketing tactics on their own. So if you want to grow your podcast, you need to be thinking about doing specific things to grow your podcast, not other things that need to be grown also.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Hi, my name is Gordon Glenister, and I'm the Global Head of Influencer Marketing at the Branded Content Marketing Association, which sounds like a mouthful, and as a seasoned podcast host, it amazes me when people say, oh, it's easy to grow a podcast, isn't it? And it absolutely isn't. I've been at this since 2018, and it takes consistency, and it takes time and effort to create the right content that's relevant to your audience.
Hey, Jordan Harbinger here of the creatively titled Jordan Harbinger Show. I think one of the most annoying and stupid things in podcasting is people asking how they can monetize right away. They're turning their hobby into a job. If you think about this with any other hobby, nobody is asking how to monetize this. Nobody's building Legos at home and thinks, how can I monetize this? Nobody's setting up trains and thinking, how can I monetize this? But people are starting podcasts talking about something they love, and they're thinking, oh, how can I get somebody to pay me for this? Stop doing that. You're ruining your hobby. 99.99% of podcasts are money-losing endeavors, and that is okay. It's supposed to start as a hobby. It doesn't have to end that way, but rushing to get to that finish line of monetization is a huge mistake.
Hey, I'm Colin from thepodcasthost.com and Ala2. My stupid thing in podcasting, the thing that always comes up is people coming to us having spent like $1,000 on gear, and then actually they don't know how to adjust the actual little switches on their mixer or plug in the cable on the back in the right place. And therefore, every time they go to record, they sit down, they've got their plan in front of them, and they press record, and it's too quiet, or it's not recording at all, or they're like, oh, this fader's broken. So it's just keep it simple as possible. It's the only thing that works. So much power in having a setup that you press record and it just works. And that means fewer components and they just go.
And after every person, I was like, yes. And then another, I'd be like, absolutely. And that kind of thing makes me go, this is the show I want to listen to. And they have great interviews. They talk about things. I've been on the show. We were talking about why do new podcasters quit too soon and things like that in and around podcasting. But I was amazed at how I felt after hearing a bunch of people. They didn't say anything that I didn't know already. So if we go back to reaction videos, those don't teach me anything new. But hearing that, I was like, absolutely. And I felt in tune, I guess you could say, with the hosts of the show. It's like, yes, you and I agree on these things. And that is really the beginning of community. So does this mean I have to be outlandish? I'll answer that in just a second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you need to go out and be outlandish, but when you speak your opinion and it's not always popular, or it's one of those subjects I talk about, it might sound like this. So I'm playing this clip specifically because some of you are going to be like, yes. And some of you are like, oh, I can't believe he's playing that clip. Check this out. This is a reporter out of Australia, and she's interviewing a trans woman on her show.
Good afternoon, Julia. You know my pronouns are they, them. How are you doing?
Yeah. Thank you for telling me your pronouns. I use correct grammar. So the only thing I would need to refer you to is to your face would be you. But I'm not being rude. You can choose your pronouns. You can choose what you want to call yourself, but you don't get to require me to use incorrect grammar and factually incorrect things. You're not a plural. You're a one person, and you're a female person. So I will use she and her. Thank you very much.
Do what you like, I guess.
Well, there you are. You didn't need to tell me then, did you?
Maybe I'm just making sure people know in case they're watching and they want to refer to me respectfully.
Is it disrespectful for me to use correct factual grammar?
It's not incorrect or unfactual grammar to use singular they them pronouns for an individual. But we're here to talk about the cast review.
Yeah, but you chose to bring it up.
You chose to use the incorrect pronouns for me.
I chose to use the correct pronouns for a single woman who is appearing on my show.
I'm not a single woman, though. I'm a very special non-binary trans person, as you just pointed out. I
didn't
really
just point that out.
in the crowd.
I didn't just point that out. I introduced you as a journalist and a Virgin Radio presenter.
No, just before I came on, you were talking about how people with all these labels like to be special. And I'm just making sure that everyone knows I'm special.
Okay, I'm not special. I'm just a boring old heterosexual married woman. But, sorry about that. We're not allowed to do that anymore. In fact, that probably does make me special now. I don't know.
So the host is Julia Hartley Brewer. It's from apparently a YouTube channel called Talk TV. Their tagline is the home of common sense, available on YouTube and streaming platforms along with DAB Plus radio and your smart speaker. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh. And so I actually Googled the interviewer's name, Julia Hartley Brewer, to see if she'd been canceled or any kind of, consequences if her house had been burned down or death threats, and nothing. I didn't see a single thing. And I tried Google. I don't know about you, but Google is horrible. Google won the search engine wars by providing great content quickly. And the front page of Google is a complete waste of time right now. There's an opinion. And I've actually switched to Bing because it's not much, but you can actually get paid to search via Bing. So that's what I'm doing. But how did you feel after listening to that? That's why I played that again, because you're either going, oh, press on, sister, or you're going, I can't believe she just said that to that person. And you have heard me say, we talked about this in the last episode, my typical criteria for good content is it makes you laugh, cry, think, groan, educate, or entertain. And I added a whole bunch in the last episode. I'll put a link to that out in the show notes. But people go, what do you mean by groan? And I go, there are shows you may listen to because you don't like them and because they voice an opinion, and you go back to listen. And I have a show, I don't hate listen, I think that's a little extreme, but it drives me nuts. And I go back to see, does it still drive me nuts? And it's called Media Roundtable. And there are a couple of things. Number one, they talk about this is for the top audio professional in your company and how important audio is. And they produce some of the worst audio, not so much the host, although they're early shows, but we'll give them a break. Their early shows weren't great. But they have people coming on who are guests on a show that talks about how important audio is. And then they show up and they sound like they're in a fishbowl in a bathroom with someone frying bacon in the background. It's amazing. Now, this particular clip, you can't really critique the audio because it was recorded live at Podcast Movement. They were doing a panel, and the opening moderator said this.
This is going to happen. Find a good spot. It's hard to have a movement if you don't have sponsors. I think about the kind of hierarchy or the pyramid of, you know, how decisions get made in this industry, and you kind of have, you know, creators, publishers, maybe agencies, but brands really, I think, fundamentally determine the success of the industry. I think they tell us what's possible, how much can we grow, what is our value, and, you know, how big can we get. So
when he starts off saying you can't have a movement if you don't have sponsors, no, you can't have a movement if you don't have an audience. And it's the audience that then attract the sponsors. If all the sponsors went away today, we'd still have podcasting. What a stupid thing to say. And then I think sponsors help dictate how valuable the content is. No, what makes content valuable is who receives it and they go, man, that was really good. That really helped me, or it really, whatever it is. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And this show loves to talk about my favorite subject.
So I'll hit on something softer, which is brand safety. And so I think, leaders, I think it's great when people listen to podcasts personally, because then it becomes easier to convince leadership to invest in that channel. But podcast is a bit of the wild, wild west.
And so first things first, no, that's been said so often. It's the wild, wild west. You don't know what you want. If anything, I think podcasting right now doesn't have enough creativity. We're all trying to sound like everybody else, but it's not the wild, wild west. And if it is, do some research to find out what you're dealing with.
And they're very low barriers to entry. So anyone, for the most part, can start a show. And I know there's a lot of competition, which means that folks are always thinking about what is my next episode going to sound like. And so I think it is a risky space for a brand to be in when hosts decide that they want a cutting edge story and kind of go off topic to the general theme or description of what the kind of Apple Podcast Store says their show is. And so I think when I look back at my last 2 years, every single time I've had a red flag leadership issue around content, it has been with podcast every single time.
And the reason was someone provided cutting edge content. No, we don't want anything new or, excite. No, that's got to say brand safe.
And it's because there was a conversation or a topic, or in some cases, I won't say who it was, a guest, that it was very out of the norm for that show to have. And there was a lot of hate speech.
And of course, has anyone really if I say I hate you, that is hate speech. But if I say, you know what, this show isn't my cup of tea, is that hate speech?
And so it became a problem for the brand, and it caused weeks of issues internally. And so I think, every time there is something that we deem as being brand safe, it doesn't just undermine the one show, it actually undermines the entire buy. And then I have to actually remind folks that not every show is risky, because it's interesting, because if you're in TV and you watch a TV show and it's problematic. No one blames the entire TV industry. It's one show. But for some reason in podcasts, you have one bad podcast show or an episode or something that goes off the rails, and business leaders are just like, should we be investing in this space at all? Should we just use something else? And so I think I have to be very sensitive, because every time it happens, I've got to protect the entire buy, because it begs a lot of questions and people are wondering, well, can we have this issue somewhere else? And so I think that's the part that I think frustrates me, is that it's still so new.
It's not new. Please quit saying that. It's not the wild, wild west, and it's not new. Podcasting has been around for over 20 years.
That one bad player, one bad episode, one bad show could actually undermine like hundreds of other shows. And again, it has nothing to do with the other shows, but just to let you know, that's just how brand sensitive some companies are.
Oh, brand safety and now brand sensitive. Tell them to grow a pair and simply look at them and say, oh, you don't like that one person said. It's a phrase that gets used a lot on infomercials. The following content does not necessarily represent the views of the sponsors. We don't need to have 11 different companies tracking podcasters and their content and their guests to make sure they don't say booger. Drives me crazy. And the other thing, that we need all this brand safety so it's easy to sell to the buyers. And yet you have content. This came out this year, The Safest Bet, the state of podcast advertising. This is from soundsprofitable.com. You can actually get this if you're trying to sell sponsors on your show. And in it says podcasting is the most trusted medium. So the anchor man or woman behind the desk just doesn't have as much trust from the audience as a podcaster. And then on slide 7, it says podcast ads significantly, let's say that again, it's a fun word, significantly outperform traditional broadcast media. How is it hard to sell ads in podcasts? Simply say, hey, we'll just have the host say the views and opinions expressed on the show do not necessarily express those of its sponsors. And then if somebody comes to you, Mr. Sponsor, and says, hey, she said booger, you simply say, as a company, we're trying to buy advertising in the most efficient way, getting in front of the most people for the least amount of money so we can keep the price of our product low. And that person has a boatload of listeners, and so that's why we sponsor them. The views of the host do not necessarily express the views of the advertiser. I don't understand why that doesn't work. Besides, we'd put like 11 different companies out of business because they're busy stalking podcasters and hosts so they can go, hey, that person wore white pants after Labor Day. Or whatever we're going to get busted for. And how is all this brand safety really making sure everything's suitable for everyone, especially the children, of course? How's that working?
Let's say it out loud. It's not going that well. We've taken the GARM framework, Global Advertisers for Responsible Media. We took 11 categories. And we've asked brands to set their tolerance levels on 4 different risk profiles for each one, as though anybody in the universe really knows what those definitions actually mean as they translate them to their ad campaigns. Nobody really knows. No two people inside of an organization would ever come to the same conclusions if they were setting those tolerance levels. And so I think we're asking a lot of the wrong questions, and then we're relying on machines, AI and machine learning through these systems to apply those criteria to the shows that we listen to, running their transcripts through. And what's happening is you have a lot of false precision.
I love that phrase. No, it's not that we messed up. It's false precision.
So brands are sponsoring things they probably shouldn't or wouldn't intentionally.
That's probably the case if they don't do the homework, with humans and stuff and actually listen to the show.
And they're not sponsoring things they probably should.
Like smaller shows with hyper local followings.
And the error rate on this thing is insane, and nobody's looking at the transcripts. We have no accountability. There is no quality control in the audio space for brand safety and suitability to see how what has become the industry standard, what we hoped would work, is actually not working that well.
Put your faith in the audience not being complete morons and they know how to delete a show or unsubscribe from a show that they don't like and learn the phrase, the views expressed by the host are not necessarily those of the sponsors.
And, the solution we're proposing is civility score as a primary metric and using the machine learning and the GARM framework as a secondary metric to alert you when maybe you need to look a little closer at something, but not as something that you can set your tolerance levels, ignore, and hope that the programmatic robots are going to accurately interpret your company's values and make sure you stay out of harm's way. It's not working. We need to say it out loud. We need to repeat it. We need to find a suitable solution. We believe the civility score, because it measures personal attack, will cut out about 95% of the problem, keep brands from getting sucked into the culture wars, and allow you to advertise broadly so that you're not just afraid of being adjacent to topics, because topics aren't the problem. It's how the topics are treated, how responsibly those topics are treated.
And that's the one thing I agree on. It's the reaction. It's like, oh, somebody doesn't like us and they're going to get their pitchforks and their torches. Just say, again, the views expressed by the host do not necessarily represent those of this company. I don't know why that doesn't work. Seems pretty simple to me.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up one more point. As we talk about being yourself and letting your opinions go out there into the world, maybe you don't have to worry so much. And that one guy said, of course, the heartbeat, well, I'm putting words in his mouth, right? But you can't build a movement without brands. Well, I'm here to tell you that the most perverted sounds so judgy, but it is the filthiest show I've ever heard, and also laughed at, by the way. It's called Distorted View. It's by a guy named Tim Henson, and this is a guy that has been making a living with his show since 2006. And he does it through, he was basically doing Patreon before there was a Patreon. He has people sign up for $7 a month, and it is the most unsafe show that you could ever want to sponsor on. So I don't believe he might have Adam and Eve, which is an adult toy kind of thing. But for the most part, it's Tim's membership. And so if you're like, oh, you have to be brand safe to make it, I'm here to tell you, if you go and look, I'm here to tell you, it is not work safe. It is not spouse safe. It is dirty, lots of naughty words and dirty, and lots of talk about smelly things and things going, a lot of hot dog and donut discussion. But I will tell you, if you listen, you're going to go to the dinner table and like, you're not going to believe what I heard. So I bring that up, that it has to be brand safe. It has to be squeaky clean. No, not always. Just putting that out there. And what is Tim doing? Is he worried about being canceled? No. Is he worried? No, he's putting it out there. Now, I do need to do this disclaimer, and that is, there is, at least in the United States, we kind of believe there is free speech. And let's say there is also consequences, right? You're allowed to say it. It doesn't mean that you're just going to go scot-free. I always love the George Carlin joke. Can you scream movie in a crowded firehouse? Because you can't do the other one. And so there are consequences for what you say. For me, I'm not worried about being canceled. And I don't worry about my sponsor, because I am my own sponsor, which is the most profitable way to make money with your podcast. So to kind of summarize, I wanted to bring up again that the reason reaction videos, I believe, and my buddy George believes, is because people go, hey, that person thinks the same way I think. And we like people who think like we do. That's kind of part of being in a community. And so there is that. And then realize that when you voice an opinion, not everybody is going to like it. And that's okay, because the people that are left are people that like you. And that's kind of what we want, people that like us. And the more you say things that they want to hear, in a way, as long as you're, again, making them laugh, cry, think, grow, and educate or entertain, they're more than likely to also hang around with people that think the same. And hopefully that will help you grow your audience. But if you're so worried about putting anything controversial, or if you just don't have the self-confidence to say what's on your mind, that's another one. I totally get that. Just realize it's being yourself that makes your show you, and that does make it unique. And it's funny, I was just out hiking earlier today as I was getting ready to record this, and my buddy Eric K. Johnson, the podcast talent coach, has an episode that is pretty much on the same theme as this one. So great minds think alike. I'll put a link to that if you want to hear Eric's view on this, but we've done that in the past a couple times. We're like, hey, we both put out episodes about the same thing. But he was talking about how, as a coach in radio, he often gets his, DJ guys like, hey, tell stories. We all love stories. That's what makes us unique. Our stories, our opinions, those are those things that make you you, and those can't be replicated by ChatGPT. So whether you're listening or watching something and someone is saying something that you really agree with, take a second to realize how that makes you feel and how connected you feel to the host. If you don't voice your opinion, there's nothing to connect with. So if you need help finding that courage to turn on the mic, if you need some help finding your voice, I would love to help you. Go out to schoolofpodcasting.com, click on join now, use the coupon code LISTENER, and realize again, whether it's a monthly or yearly subscription, you can use that coupon and join worry-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks again to Mark over at inaroundpodcasting.com. I'll have links to all the videos and things that I played today. If you want to check out the Media Roundtable and continue to yell at your dashboard like I do when I listen, I'll put links to that out there. And speaking of that, if you like this show, could you do me a favor and share it with a friend that's trying to get their podcast up and going, or trying to grow it, or trying to monetize? Just tell them to go to schoolofpodcasting.com. Now, if you hated this show, can you do me a friend? Can you do me a friend? Can you do me a favor? Tell 2 friends how bad this show is and how they shouldn't listen, and it's the worst thing you've ever heard. I would deeply appreciate that as well. Until next week, take care. God bless. Class is dismissed.